10 years of marriage, and I thought I knew Elena Turner better than anyone. I thought wrong. Standing in the doorway of her corner office at Meridian Financial, watching my wife grind against her boss Gregory Dalton like some desperate college girl, I felt something die inside me. Not love. That had been gasping for air for months. No, what died was the last shred of respect I had for the woman who shared my bed, my name, and apparently every other man in the city. "Jack!" Elena's voice cracked like a whip as she scrambled off Dalton's lap, her designer skirt twisted around her thighs. "What are you doing here?" I looked at the drooping daisies in my grip, her favorite flowers, bought to surprise her on what I'd thought was just another stressful day at work. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Bringing my wife flowers," I said, my voice flat as roadkill. Silly me, thinking she might appreciate the gesture. Gregory Dalton, CEO of Meridian Financial and apparently my wife's new hobby, didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. The bastard actually smirked, straightening his $1,000 tie with the casual arrogance of a man who'd never faced consequences for anything in his privileged life. "Turner, right? Elena's mentioned you." "I bet she has." I stepped into the office, noting how Elena's lipstick was smeared across her chin, how her blouse was unbuttoned just enough to show the black lace bra I'd bought her for our anniversary. All good things, I hope. "Jack, please let me explain." "Explain what, Elena? That you're fucking your boss? Because I'm pretty sure I just got the full presentation." I dropped the flowers on her desk, watching the petals scatter across the quarterly reports. "Looks like you've been working really hard for that promotion." Dalton chuckled, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. "Maybe we should discuss this privately, Turner, man to man." "Oh, I think we're way past privacy, Greg. Can I call you Greg, since you're apparently family now?" I looked around the office, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the leather furniture, the framed photo of Elena and me from our wedding that sat mockingly on her bookshelf. "Nice setup you've got here. Very intimate." Elena finally found her voice, and with it, her claws. "You have no right to barge in here making accusations. This is my workplace, Jack. My career." "Your career." I nodded slowly, pieces clicking into place like rounds in a chamber. "Right. The career that suddenly took off 6 months ago when you started working late every night. The career that got you a corner office and a 30% raise while I'm still fixing engines and balancing books for my little garage." "That's not fair." "Fair?" The word tasted bitter. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you wanted out of our marriage before you started test driving your boss. Fair would have been having this conversation at home, instead of me walking in on you two playing hide the sausage in your executive suite." Dalton stood up, all 6 feet of his gym-sculpted frame trying to intimidate me. "I think you need to calm down, Turner. You're being irrational." I laughed, and even I could hear the edge in it. "Irrational? Buddy, I haven't even started being irrational yet. But keep talking. I'm curious to see how deep this rabbit hole goes." "Jack, stop it." Elena moved between us, her hands shaking as she tried to button her blouse. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger wearing my wife's face. When had she become so cold? When had her eyes turned into chips of ice? "Elena, sweetheart, I think you've got that backwards. I'm not the one who just got caught cheating in my place of business." Through the glass walls of the office, I could see other employees pretending not to watch the drama unfolding. Some were whispering behind their hands. Others weren't even bothering to hide their stares. My wife's dirty laundry was being aired in front of her entire professional network, and somehow I was the one embarrassing myself. "You know what the really funny part is?" I continued, my voice getting quieter, more dangerous. "I actually came here to apologize. I thought maybe I'd been neglecting you, working too many hours at the shop." I thought maybe we just needed to reconnect. Elena's face crumpled for just a moment, and I caught a glimpse of the woman I'd married. Then the mask slipped back into place, and she was all business again. Jack, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this. You're right, I said, moving toward the door. It doesn't have to be like this. It could have been an honest conversation about the problems in our marriage. It could have been couples therapy. Hell, it could have been a clean divorce if you were that unhappy. I paused at the threshold, looking back at the two of them. Dalton had his hand on Elena's shoulder now, a possessive gesture that made my teeth ache from clenching them so hard. Instead, I get to find out my wife's a cheating whore by walking in on her at work. So no, Elena, we can't work this out. But don't worry about me. I'll figure out how to move forward. I walked out of that office with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and stares from her co-workers. But as I reached the elevator, I heard footsteps clicking on the marble floor behind me. Jack, wait! I turned to see Sophie Martinez, Elena's best friend and fellow executive, hurrying toward me in her designer heels. Sophie, who'd been to our house for dinner countless times. Sophie, who'd been Elena's maid of honor. Sophie, whose expression told me everything I needed to know about how long this had been going on. Jack, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. We all hoped Elena would tell you herself. We all? The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside. How many people knew, Sophie? She had the grace to look uncomfortable. It's not my place to... How many? Most of the office, she admitted quietly. It's been going on for about 8 months. 8 months. Elena had been cheating on me for 8 months, and half the city's financial district knew about it before I did. I was the last to know about my own wife's affair. Thanks for the honesty, I said, as the elevator doors began to close. Tell Elena I'll have her things packed by tonight. The last thing I saw was Sophie's shocked face as the doors slid shut, leaving me alone with my rage and the pieces of my shattered life. The house felt different when I walked through the front door, smaller somehow, like the walls had moved closer together while I was gone. Or maybe it was just that the illusion of our happy home had finally cracked, and I could see it for what it really was, a carefully constructed lie. I stood in our living room, looking at the framed photos on the mantel, our wedding day, our anniversary trip to Napa, Elena's promotion party last year, where she'd thanked me in her speech for being so supportive of her career. I wondered how many people in that room had already known she was fucking her boss. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Coming home to talk. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid. Rich, coming from the woman who'd just blown up our marriage for a corner office and a sociopathic CEO with good abs. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and started pulling Elena's clothes out of the closet. Designer suits, expensive lingerie, shoes that cost more than most people made in a week. All of it funded by her sudden career advancement, which now made perfect sense. Elena hadn't earned this lifestyle. She'd fucked her way into it. I was folding her underwear when I heard the front door slam. Elena's voice echoed up the stairs, sharp with anger. Jack, what the hell do you think you're doing? Packing your shit, I called back, not bothering to go downstairs. Seemed like the obvious next step. Her heels clicked on the hardwood as she climbed the stairs, each step punctuating her fury. When she appeared in the bedroom doorway, she looked like a woman ready for war. Her makeup was perfect again, her hair smoothed back into its usual power bun. She'd taken the time to armor herself before coming home to face me. You can't just kick me out of my own house, she said, crossing her arms over her chest. This is my home too. Funny thing about that, I said, continuing to fold her clothes with mechanical precision. I checked our mortgage documents this afternoon. The house is in my name, has been since we bought it. Something about my credit being better at the time, remember? Elena's face went pale. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Protect my assets from my cheating wife? Watch me. She moved into the room, her composure starting to crack. Jack, please. Let's be adults about this. We can work something out. Adults? I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. Elena, adults don't fuck their bosses in their corner offices. Adults don't lie to their spouses for 8 months. Adults don't let their entire workplace know about their affair before telling their husband. How did you, Sophie? Elena's jaw clenched. That bitch. Don't blame Sophie for telling me the truth. Blame yourself for creating a situation where everyone in your office knew you were a cheating whore except your own husband. Elena's hand cracked across my face before I even saw it coming. The slap echoed in the bedroom like a gunshot, and for a moment we both stood frozen, staring at each other. Don't you ever call me that again, she hissed. I touched my cheek, feeling the heat of her handprint. What would you prefer? Adulteress? Home wrecker? How about we go with Gregory Dalton's office slut? That seems accurate. Fuck you, Jack. No thanks. I'm not interested in sloppy seconds. Elena's composure finally shattered completely. You think you're so much better than me? You think you're some kind of victim here? You have no idea what it's like being married to someone with no ambition, no drive. Do you know how embarrassing it is to tell people my husband owns a garage? Do you know what it's like to watch other women's husbands succeed while mine is content to spend his life covered in grease? Her words hit harder than her slap had. So this is my fault? I drove you into another man's arms because I'm not successful enough for you? You drove me away because you stopped trying. When's the last time you took me somewhere nice? When's the last time you bought me something that didn't come from a gas station? When's the last time you made me feel like I was worth more than your precious garage? When's the last time you acted like you wanted to be here? I shot back. When's the last time you kissed me goodbye in the morning, or asked about my day, or showed any interest in my life at all? You've been checked out of this marriage for years, Elena. The only difference is now I know where you checked in. Greg appreciates me, she said, and there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around. He sees my potential. He believes in me. Greg sees a piece of ass with a college degree and daddy issues. If you think he's going to leave his wife and kids for you, you're even more deluded than I thought. Elena's face went white. He's getting divorced. Is he? Or is that just what he tells all his office conquests? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Funny thing about public records, Elena. Gregory Dalton isn't filing for divorce. In fact, he just renewed his country club membership under a family plan. His wife posted photos from their anniversary dinner last week. I watched the blood drain from her face as the reality hit her. She'd thrown away our marriage for a man who was never going to choose her. She'd traded 10 years of commitment for the promise of a future that existed only in her imagination. You're lying, she whispered. Check for yourself. It's all public information. Elena sank onto the bed, her perfect composure finally cracking completely. For a moment she looked lost and vulnerable, like the woman I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. Then her expression hardened again, and I saw the cold calculation return to her eyes. Fine, she said, standing up. Maybe Greg isn't leaving his wife, but that doesn't change anything between us. This marriage is over, Jack. It's been over for years. On that, we agree. I continued packing her clothes, each folded item a small act of closure. I'll have everything ready by tomorrow. You can pick it up when I'm at work. What about the house? What about our assets? What about them? You want to lawyer up and fight over our stuff? Go ahead. But remember, Elena, I've got documentation of your affair. Photos, timestamps, witness statements. How do you think that's going to play in divorce court? Elena's face went ashen. You've been spying on me? I've been paying attention. Something I should have done months ago. I closed the suitcase and set it by the bedroom door. Your clothes will be in the garage tomorrow. Your personal items, too. After that, any communication goes through lawyers. She stood there for a long moment, looking around the bedroom like she was seeing it for the first time. 10 years, she said quietly. 10 years and this is how it ends? No, Elena. 10 years and this is how you ended it. The moment you decided Gregory Dalton was worth more than our marriage vows, this became inevitable. Elena picked up her suitcase, her movements mechanical and defeated. At the bedroom door, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this, Jack. You'll regret letting me go. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. The only thing I regret is not seeing who you really were sooner. After she left, I sat on the bed we'd shared for 10 years and listened to the silence. The house felt bigger now, like it could finally breathe again. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Patterson next door watering her garden, the sound of normal life continuing despite the fact that mine had just imploded. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from my best friend Mike. Heard what happened, coming over with beer. I smiled for the first time all day. At least some people were still loyal. Mike Chen showed up at my door 30 minutes later with a cooler full of beer and the kind of grim expression that meant he'd heard the whole story. Mike owned the bar down the street from my garage, O'Malley's, though Mike was about as Irish as a fortune cookie. He'd bought it from the original O'Malley 5 years ago and kept the name because it was good for business. Jesus Christ, Jack, he said, setting the cooler on my kitchen counter. Sophie Martinez came into the bar an hour ago looking like she'd seen a ghost. Said you walked in on Elena and Dalton going at it like teenagers. Sophie's got a big mouth, I said, accepting the beer he handed me. But yeah, that's about the size of it. Mike shook his head, his weathered face creased with disgust. 8 months, man. 8 fucking months, and half the city knew before you did. That's cold, even for Elena. You knew? I looked at him sharply. You knew and didn't tell me? I suspected, Mike admitted, having the grace to look uncomfortable. Elena started coming into the bar about 6 months ago, always with different people from her office, always acting like she was single, flirting with guys, letting them buy her drinks. I thought maybe you two were having problems, but I didn't know she was actually cheating. I took a long pull of my beer, processing this information. Elena had been playing the single woman at Mike's bar while I was home, thinking our marriage was just going through a rough patch. The depth of her deception was staggering. There's more, Mike continued, his voice careful. Derek Morrison was in last week. You remember Derek used to work at your garage before he got into the computer stuff? I nodded. Derek had been one of my best mechanics before he'd discovered he had a talent for cybersecurity. Now he made more in a month than I made in 6, but he still came by the garage sometimes to talk shop. Derek's been doing some contract work for Meridian Financial, network security, that kind of thing. He mentioned seeing some weird stuff in their email logs, personal emails being sent from company accounts, hotel reservations, dinner receipts that didn't match up with official business. He was investigating Elena? Not specifically, but when you're monitoring network security, patterns stand out. Elena's computer was flagged for unusual activity. Personal emails, dating sites, hotel booking confirmations. Derek said he was going to mention it to you, but then he figured it wasn't his business. I set down my beer, my mind racing. Dating sites? That's what he said. Multiple accounts, all active within the last year. The hits just kept coming. Not only had Elena been cheating with her boss, she'd been actively looking for other options, too. Our marriage hadn't just been a casualty of her affair with Dalton, it had been a casualty of her entire approach to our relationship. I need to talk to Derek, I said. Mike nodded. I figured you might. He's working late tonight at his office downtown. I can call him, set up a meeting. Do it. While Mike made the call, I walked to the living room window and looked out at the street. Mrs. Patterson was still in her garden, deadheading roses in the fading daylight. Normal life, continuing as if my world hadn't just been turned upside down. My phone buzzed, a text from Elena. Staying at Sophie's tonight. We need to talk tomorrow about dividing assets. I showed the message to Mike, who snorted with laughter. She's got balls, I'll give her that. Cheats on you for 8 months, gets caught red-handed, and now she wants to negotiate a settlement. She's going to be disappointed, I said. I talked to my lawyer this afternoon. With documentation of the affair, she's not getting much. You already called a lawyer? Called him from the parking lot of her office building. Tom Rodriguez has been handling my business legal stuff for years. He's good, and he's ruthless when he needs to be. Mike raised his beer in a mock toast. To Tom Rodriguez, attorney at law and destroyer of cheating wives. I'll drink to that. Derek Morrison met us at his office at 9 o'clock, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Derek was one of those guys who'd found his calling in life. Computers made sense to him in a way that people never had. He was thin and pale, with the kind of nervous energy that came from spending too much time staring at screens. Jack, man, I'm really sorry about all this, he said, leading us into his office. I should have said something sooner. You're not responsible for my wife's choices, I told him, but I need to know what you found. Derek pulled up a chair to his computer and started typing. Okay, so when I was doing the security audit for Meridian, I noticed some anomalies in their network traffic. Personal emails being sent from company accounts, non-business websites being accessed during work hours, that kind of thing. The screen filled with data logs, timestamps, and email headers. To me, it looked like gibberish. To Derek, it was apparently a roadmap of Elena's extracurricular activities. Elena's computer was one of the worst offenders, Derek continued. Look at this. She's been using her work email to communicate with at least 3 different dating sites: Match.com, eHarmony, and something called affairfinder.net. Affairfinder? Mike leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Jesus, that's not even subtle. It gets worse, Derek said, clicking through more screens. She's been booking hotel rooms through her work computer, charging them to her corporate credit card, and then reimbursing the company with personal checks. The paper trail is extensive. I stared at the evidence of my wife's systematic deception, feeling numb. How long has this been going on? The earliest activity I can find dates back 14 months, Derek said quietly. But it really picked up about 8 months ago, right around the time she started her thing with Dalton. 14 months. Elena had been actively looking for ways out of our marriage for more than a year, and I'd been completely oblivious. I'd been worried about the garage's cash flow and whether we should refinance the house, while my wife had been shopping for my replacement online. There's one more thing, Derek said, his voice even more uncomfortable. Elena's been corresponding with someone else besides Dalton, someone she calls M in her emails. The messages are explicit. Show me. Derek hesitated. Jack, are you sure you want to see this? Show me. He pulled up an email chain that made my stomach turn. Elena, my wife of 10 years, describing sexual acts with someone identified only as M in language that would make a porn star blush. The timestamp showed the email had been sent 3 days ago, while I was downstairs watching television and thinking about surprising her with a weekend getaway. Can you trace who M is? I asked, my voice tight with controlled rage. I can try. Give me a few minutes. While Derek worked his digital magic, Mike and I sat in silence, drinking beer and processing the magnitude of Elena's betrayal. It wasn't just the affair with Dalton. It was the systematic, deliberate destruction of our marriage while she maintained the pretense of being a loving wife. Got it, Derek said finally. The emails are going to an account registered to Marcus Webb. He's a personal trainer at Elite Fitness downtown, 28 years old, recently divorced. A personal trainer. Elena was fucking her boss, and a personal trainer half her age. The cliches were so obvious, they would have been funny if they weren't destroying my life. Derek, I need copies of all of this, I said. Everything you can legally provide. Already done. He handed me a flash drive. Everything's on there, along with a detailed report of when and how I obtained the information. It's all admissible in court. I pocketed the drive, feeling like I was carrying a nuclear weapon. Thank you. Both of you. I know this isn't easy. What are you going to do? Mike asked. I looked at the evidence of Elena's betrayal glowing on Derek's computer screen and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Elena wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I played to win. I'm going to give my wife exactly what she deserves, I said. The next morning, I opened Turner's Automotive at 6 a.m. sharp, just like I had every day for the past 12 years. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal shavings should have been comforting, but everything felt different now. The garage that had once been my pride and joy, the business I'd built from nothing, now felt like evidence of my inadequacy in Elena's eyes. My first customer was Mrs. Henderson, a 70-year-old widow who brought her ancient Buick in for oil changes religiously every 3 months. She took one look at my face and immediately went into grandmother mode. "Jack Turner, you look like hell," she said, her voice sharp with concern. "What's wrong, honey?" I considered lying, giving her some generic excuse about being tired. But Mrs. Henderson had been coming to my garage since I'd opened, and she'd earned the truth. "Elena and I are getting divorced," I said simply. Mrs. Henderson's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, concern, and then something that looked suspiciously like relief. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. But if I'm being honest, I never thought that woman was good enough for you." "You didn't?" "She always acted like she was doing you a favor by being married to you. A good wife doesn't look at her husband like he's something she scraped off her shoe." Mrs. Henderson patted my arm with surprising strength. "You're better off without her. Mark my words." It was a sentiment I'd hear repeatedly over the next few days. As word of the divorce spread through our small community, I was surprised by how many people had never liked Elena. Neighbors, customers, even the mailman had opinions about my wife's character, and none of them were flattering. "She always acted like she was too good for the neighborhood," said Jim Kowalski, who lived 3 houses down. "Never said hello, never came to block parties. My wife always said there was something cold about her." The consensus was clear. Elena had been putting on an act for years, and I'd been the only one fooled by her performance. By Thursday, I'd had enough of the sympathy and decided to take action. Derek had given me more than just evidence of Elena's affairs. He'd given me a roadmap to her entire secret life. It was time to explore that map. Elite Fitness was located in the trendy part of downtown, the kind of place where personal training sessions cost more than most people's car payments. The clientele was exactly what you'd expect: wealthy professionals who needed someone to motivate them through workouts they could easily do themselves. I paid for a day pass and spent an hour observing the scene, looking for Marcus Webb. Derek had provided me with a photo from the gym's website: mid-20s, artificially white teeth, the kind of sculpted physique that required more maintenance than most people's cars. I found him working with a client in the free weights section, all encouragement and professional charm. He was exactly Elena's type, if her type was young, attractive, and completely self-absorbed. After his session ended, I approached him at the juice bar, playing the role of potential client. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Webb?" I asked, extending my hand. "I'm Jack Turner. I was hoping to ask about personal training sessions." Marcus lit up with the practiced enthusiasm of someone who worked on commission. "Absolutely. I'd love to help you reach your fitness goals, Jack. What kind of program are you looking for?" "Well, my wife has been raving about personal training lately. She's been working with someone, and the results have been impressive." I let the innuendo hang in the air, watching his reaction. A flicker of something, guilt, excitement, crossed Marcus's face. "That's great to hear. What's your wife's name? Maybe I know her trainer." "Elena Turner. She works at Meridian Financial." Marcus's professional smile faltered for just a moment, but it was enough. "Elena Turner. The name sounds familiar, but I work with a lot of clients. Hard to keep track sometimes." "Really?" Because she talks about her trainer constantly, says he's really helped her discover new techniques. I smiled pleasantly, watching him squirm. She's been staying late for sessions several times a week, very dedicated to her fitness routine. That's great, Marcus stammered. Dedication is key to any successful fitness program. Absolutely. In fact, she's been so inspired by her training that she's completely changed her approach to life. New attitude, new priorities. It's like she's a completely different person. Marcus was sweating now, and not from his workout. Look, Mr. Turner, I think there might be some confusion. Oh, there's no confusion, I said, my voice dropping to a more serious tone. I know exactly what kind of training my wife has been getting, Marcus. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Marcus glanced around the gym nervously, clearly realizing that his affair with Elena was no longer a secret. I don't know what you think you know, but I know that my wife has been fucking you for the past 6 months while I was at home thinking our marriage was just going through a rough patch. I know that you've been using the gym's facilities for your little rendezvous, and I know that you're stupid enough to put explicit details in emails that can be traced. The color drained from Marcus's face. Look, man, I didn't know she was married when it started. She told me she was separated. And when did you find out she was lying? Marcus looked down at his protein shake, unable to meet my eyes. A couple months ago, but by then things were complicated. Complicated. I nodded slowly. That's one way to put it. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're going to stop seeing my wife immediately. You're going to delete her contact information, block her on social media, and if she shows up here, you're going to tell her you're not interested. And if I don't? I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Then I'm going to have a conversation with your boss about how you've been using company facilities to conduct personal relationships with married clients. I'm also going to have a conversation with Elena's husband, oh wait, that's me, about whether I want to pursue alienation of affection charges. Marcus's eyes went wide. You can't do that. Can I? This is North Carolina, Marcus. Alienation of affection is still on the books here, and I've got documentation of your relationship with my wife. How do you think that's going to play out for your career? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. Okay, I'll end it. Good choice. I stood up, leaving my untouched protein shake on the counter. Oh, and Marcus? If I find out you've warned Elena about this conversation, our next chat won't be nearly as friendly. I left the gym feeling like I'd accomplished something, but I knew Marcus was just the appetizer. The main course was still Gregory Dalton, and he wasn't going to be nearly as easy to intimidate. Gregory Dalton's office building was a monument to corporate excess, 40 stories of glass and steel reaching toward the sky like a middle finger aimed at the working class. Meridian Financial occupied floors 35 through 40, with Dalton's executive suite taking up most of the top floor. Getting to Dalton wouldn't be easy. Men like him surrounded themselves with layers of protection, assistants, security, administrative gatekeepers whose job was to keep people like me away from people like him. But I had advantages that most people didn't. I knew the building's service schedule because I'd done maintenance work on their fleet vehicles. I knew which security guards were lazy because I'd overheard Elena complaining about them. And I knew Dalton's routine because my wife had been following it for 8 months. Thursday evenings, Dalton worked late. Not because he was dedicated to his job, but because Thursday was when his wife had her book club, giving him a convenient window for his extracurricular activities. Elena had mentioned it once, complaining that he was too busy to see her on Thursdays. At the time, I'd thought she was talking about legitimate work meetings. I positioned myself in the parking garage at 8 p.m., waiting in my truck with a clear view of Dalton's reserved parking space. His car was exactly what you'd expect from a man compensating for his moral shortcomings. A black BMW M5 with custom rims and a vanity plate that read, Top Dog. At 8:30, The elevator doors opened and Gregory Dalton emerged, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine ad for expensive cologne. Perfectly styled hair, tailored suit, the kind of confident swagger that came from never facing real consequences for anything. I got out of my truck and approached him as he reached his car. "Mr. Dalton, Jack Turner, we met briefly the other day." Dalton looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from annoyance to recognition to something approaching amusement. "Turner, Elena's husband. What can I do for you?" "I was hoping we could have a conversation, man to man." "About what?" "About my wife. About your relationship with her. About what happens next." Dalton leaned against his BMW, crossing his arms over his chest. "I'm not sure what you think you know, Turner, but I know that you've been fucking my wife for 8 months. I know that you've been using your position as her boss to coerce her into a sexual relationship. And I know that you have absolutely no intention of leaving your wife for her." Dalton's smug expression didn't waver. "That's quite an accusation. Do you have any proof?" I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Derek's screenshots, an email exchange between him and Elena that left nothing to the imagination. "How's this for proof?" For the first time, Dalton looked genuinely concerned. "How did you get that?" "Does it matter? The point is, I have documentation of your affair, emails, hotel receipts, witness statements, enough to destroy your marriage and your career." Dalton straightened up, his businessman's instincts kicking in. "What do you want, Turner?" "I want you to understand something about the situation you've created. You think you're in control here because you're rich and powerful, and you're used to getting whatever you want. But you've made a mistake." "What mistake is that?" "You fucked with a man who has nothing left to lose. Elena was my whole world for 10 years, and you took that away from me for your own entertainment. So now I'm going to return the favor." Dalton laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're threatening me? Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. You're a middle-aged man having a midlife crisis, using your position to prey on vulnerable employees. You're a cliché, Dalton. A walking, talking cliché with delusions of grandeur. And you're a small-town mechanic who's in way over his head," Dalton shot back. "You think you can intimidate me with some stolen emails? I've got lawyers who eat guys like you for breakfast." "Maybe, but I've got something your lawyers can't protect you from." "Which is?" I smiled, and I could see my expression unsettled him. "I've got the truth, and in about 24 hours, everyone in your professional and personal life is going to know exactly what kind of man you really are." Dalton's confidence finally cracked. "What are you talking about?" "Check your email tomorrow morning. Better yet, check your wife's email. I think she'll find the evidence of your affair very interesting." I started walking back toward my truck, leaving Dalton standing next to his BMW with his mouth hanging open. "Turner!" he called after me. "You can't do this!" I turned back, still smiling. "Watch me." Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me optimistic about the day ahead. Today, however, my good mood had nothing to do with the weather and everything to do with the email I'd sent at midnight. Derek had helped me craft the perfect message, professional, factual, and devastating. It included a comprehensive overview of Gregory Dalton's affair with Elena, complete with documentation, timestamps, and explicit email exchanges. The recipient list had been carefully curated. Dalton's wife, the Meridian Financial Board of Directors, key clients, and several prominent members of the country club, where Dalton liked to play golf with other titans of industry. I was drinking my morning coffee and reading the news when my phone started ringing. The first call was from Elena, and I let it go to voicemail. The second was also from Elena. The third was from a number I didn't recognize, but the voicemail made it clear it was someone from Meridian Financial's legal department. By 9 a.m., my phone had received 14 calls, 6 voicemails, and 23 text messages. Elena was in full panic mode, alternating between begging me to fix this and threatening to destroy me if I didn't. The legal threats were more creative, but equally desperate. I was enjoying the chaos when Mike showed up at the garage with coffee and donuts, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Holy shit, Jack," he said, setting the food on my workbench. "Did you see the news?" "What news?" Mike pulled out his phone and showed me the local business journal's website. The headline read, "Meridian Financial CEO suspended pending investigation into workplace misconduct allegations." I read the article twice, savoring every word. According to the report, Gregory Dalton had been suspended with pay pending an internal investigation into allegations of inappropriate relationships with subordinates. The company's board had issued a statement expressing their commitment to maintaining a professional workplace environment and their intention to thoroughly investigate all claims. "It gets better," Mike said, scrolling to another article. "Check out the society page." The second article was from the lifestyle section, focusing on the social implications of the scandal. Apparently, Dalton's wife had already filed for divorce and was seeking a significant portion of his assets, including their mansion, vacation home, and country club membership. The article quoted several unnamed sources describing the explosive evidence that had prompted her decision. "You did this?" Mike asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "I may have shared some information with interested parties." "Jesus, Jack. You don't fuck around, do you?" Before I could answer, a familiar car pulled into the garage's parking lot. Elena's white Mercedes, a car that had been a source of pride for her and a source of debt for us, came to an abrupt stop next to the gas pumps. Elena got out looking like she hadn't slept in days, her usually perfect appearance disheveled and desperate. "Mike, maybe you should—" I started. "Not a chance," Mike interrupted. "I want to see this." Elena stormed into the garage like an avenging angel, her eyes blazing with fury and desperation. "Jack, what the hell have you done?" "Good morning, Elena. You look terrible." "Don't you dare joke with me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Greg's been suspended. His wife is divorcing him. The entire company is in chaos." "Sounds like the consequences of his actions are catching up with him," I said calmly. "Amazing how that works." "You destroyed his life." "No, Elena. He destroyed his own life when he decided to fuck his employees. I just made sure people knew about it." Elena looked around the garage wildly, as if searching for something to throw at me. "You sent those emails to everyone, his wife, his business partners, his friends. How could you be so cruel?" "Cruel?" I set down my coffee and looked at her with genuine amazement. "Elena, you cheated on me for 8 months. You let your entire office know about your affair before telling your own husband. You were planning to take half of everything I've worked for while you fucked your way up the corporate ladder. And I'm the one being cruel? That's different. How is it different?" Elena's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Finally, she found her voice. "Because we're married. This is between us. You didn't have to involve other people." "Other people were already involved. Greg's wife deserved to know that her husband was cheating on her. Meridian's board deserved to know that their CEO was creating a hostile work environment. You involved all these people when you decided to conduct your affair in public. You've ruined everything." Elena's voice cracked, and for a moment I saw genuine despair in her eyes. "Greg won't even take my calls now. His lawyers told him not to contact me. I could lose my job." "Welcome to consequences, Elena. Population, you." "This isn't over," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You think you've won? But this isn't over. I'm going to make you pay for this." "With what? Your credibility is shot, your lover has thrown you under the bus to save his own skin, and you're about to be unemployed. What exactly are you going to do to me that's worse than what you've already done?" Elena didn't have an answer for that. She stood there for another moment, looking around the garage that she'd always seen as evidence of my failure, and I could see her finally understanding that this place, my place, was where I was strongest. "I hope you're happy," she said finally. "I'm getting there." After Elena left, Mike and I sat in comfortable silence, drinking our coffee and watching the normal world go about its business. Customers came and went, cars got fixed, life continued. "So what's next?" Mike asked eventually. "Next, I file for divorce and move on with my life." "That's it? No more revenge schemes?" I considered the question seriously. Elena and Dalton had both gotten what they deserved. Their affair was public knowledge, their reputations were destroyed, and they were facing real consequences for their actions. I could continue the campaign, dig deeper into their lives, find new ways to make them suffer. But what would be the point? "That's it," I said. "I'm done." "You're sure? Because I've got some ideas about—" "I'm sure, Mike. Revenge is like whiskey. A little bit feels good, but too much will poison you." Mike nodded approvingly. "When did you get so wise?" "About 5 minutes ago." The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. Elena's lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Mills, had clearly advised her client to take whatever deal I was offering and disappear quietly. With the documentation of Elena's affairs and the public scandal surrounding her relationship with Dalton, she had no leverage and no sympathy from the court. We met at Tom Rodriguez's office on a gray Tuesday morning in November, 6 weeks after the emails had destroyed what remained of Elena's carefully constructed life. Elena looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past month and a half. Her hair was shorter, her clothes were more conservative, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd been sleeping badly for weeks. "My client is prepared to accept the settlement as proposed," Patricia Mills said, sliding a folder across the conference table. "Mrs. Turner will retain her personal possessions, her vehicle, and her 401k. Mr. Turner will retain the house, the business, and all other marital assets." It was a generous offer, considering I could have pushed for more, but I wanted this finished, not prolonged. "What about spousal support?" Tom asked. "Mrs. Turner waives all claims to spousal support," Patricia replied quickly. I looked at Elena, who was staring at her hands and refusing to make eye contact. "You sure about that, Elena? You're giving up a lot." She finally looked up, and I was surprised to see something that might have been regret in her eyes. "I just want this over with, Jack." "So do I." We signed the papers in silence, the only sound the scratching of pens and the distant hum of traffic outside Tom's office windows. 10 years of marriage reduced to a stack of legal documents and divided assets. As we prepared to leave, Elena finally spoke directly to me. "Jack, I want you to know I'm sorry for all of it. I know you are, Elena, but being sorry doesn't change what happened. I know, I wanted you to know." I nodded, accepting her apology without forgiving her. Some things couldn't be forgiven, only moved past. After Elena and her lawyer left, Tom and I sat in his office reviewing the final documents. "You could have taken her for more," Tom said. "With the evidence you had, you could have left her with nothing. What would be the point? I wanted my life back, not her destruction. You're a better man than most, Jack. No, I'm just tired of being angry." The next few months passed quietly. I threw myself into work, expanding the garage's services and building relationships with new customers. Word had gotten around about Elena's affair and my handling of the situation, and surprisingly, it had been good for business. People respected the fact that I'd stood up for myself without becoming vindictive. I started dating again in the spring. Nothing serious at first, just dinner and movies with women who appreciated honesty and weren't impressed by corporate titles. It was refreshing to have conversations with people who valued character over career advancement. Elena, meanwhile, had left town shortly after our divorce was finalized. According to the gossip network that Mike maintained at his bar, she'd taken a job with a smaller firm in Charlotte, starting over at a much lower salary and with a significantly damaged reputation. Gregory Dalton had also left Meridian Financial, though his departure had been less voluntary. His wife's divorce settlement had cost him his house, his country club membership, and a significant portion of his assets. I felt no satisfaction in their downfalls, only a sense of closure. They had made choices that destroyed their lives, and they were living with the consequences. It was justice, not revenge. One evening in late spring, I was closing up the garage when I found Mrs. Henderson waiting by her Buick, looking unusually serious. "Jack, honey, I wanted to thank you," she said. "For what, Mrs. Henderson?" "For showing my granddaughter that a man can be strong without being cruel. She's been following your story, and she says it's given her hope that there are still good men in the world." I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the spring weather. "That means a lot, Mrs. Henderson. You've handled this whole situation with class, Jack. Your parents would be proud." After she left, I stood in front of my garage, looking at the business I'd built with my own hands. Turner's Automotive wasn't glamorous, and it would never make me rich, but it was honest work that helped people solve their problems. Elena had seen it as evidence of my limitations. I saw it as proof of my character. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Beer and burgers at the bar. New bartender wants to meet the famous Jack Turner." I smiled, locked up the garage, and headed toward O'Malley's. Life was good, and it was getting better every day. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was living a completely different life. The house felt like home again, instead of a museum to a failed marriage. I'd redecorated the bedroom, turned Elena's former office into a workshop for small engine repair, and generally made the space my own. The garage was thriving. Word-of-mouth advertising had brought in new customers, and I'd hired 2 additional mechanics to handle the increased workload. Derek had even started sending me referrals from his corporate clients, executives who appreciated quality work and discretion. I was working late on a Thursday evening, finishing up a transmission rebuild, when I heard footsteps in the garage. I looked up to see a woman in her mid-30s, wearing jeans and a sweater, with shoulder-length brown hair and intelligent green eyes. "Are you Jack Turner?" she asked. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Sarah Mitchell. I think you know my brother, Derek Morrison." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and extended one for a handshake. "Derek's your brother? He's never mentioned having a sister." "Derek doesn't talk about family much, but he's mentioned you several times. Says you're one of the good guys." "Derek's a good judge of character. What can I do for you, Sarah?" "My car's been making a weird noise for the past week. Derek said you were the only mechanic in town he'd trust with his own car." I followed her outside to a red Honda Civic that had seen better days. "What kind of noise?" "It's hard to describe, like a grinding sound when I turn left." I popped the hood and took a look at the engine, then got behind the wheel for a test drive. Sarah climbed into the passenger seat, and I caught a hint of her perfume, something light and floral that reminded me of spring mornings. "So you're the famous Jack Turner," she said, as I navigated through the parking lot, listening for the grinding sound she'd described. "Famous? That's a generous description. Derek told me about what happened with your ex-wife. He said you handled a terrible situation with more class than most people would have managed." I found the source of the noise, a worn CV joint that would need to be replaced, and headed back to the garage. "Derek talks too much. He cares about you. He feels guilty about not telling you about your wife's affair sooner. He shouldn't. That wasn't his responsibility." I parked the Honda and explained the problem to Sarah. It was a straightforward repair, nothing expensive or complicated. As I wrote up the estimate, she watched me work with the kind of attention that suggested genuine interest. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Shoot." "Are you angry about what happened with your marriage?" I considered the question seriously. I was angry, furious, actually. But anger is exhausting, and it doesn't change anything. I'd rather focus on building something better than dwelling on what was broken. Sarah smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "That's a healthy attitude. It took me a while to get there. What about you? Ever been married?" "Engaged once. He turned out to be more interested in my trust fund than in me. Trust fund? My grandfather invented a widget that every car manufacturer uses. The family's done well from the patents. I looked at her Honda Civic and raised an eyebrow. And you drive a 10-year-old Honda? Money doesn't have to define you. I'd rather be valued for who I am than what I have. Smart philosophy. I learned it from watching my parents' marriage fall apart over money. They spent so much time fighting about assets that they forgot they were supposed to love each other. I finished writing up the estimate and handed it to her. I can have this fixed by tomorrow afternoon if you want to leave it here. That would be great. Do you need me to pay anything up front? Not necessary. I trust Derek's sister. Sarah smiled again. Would you like to get dinner sometime, as a thank you for the quick repair? I looked at this intelligent, attractive woman who drove a modest car despite having money, who valued character over status, and who seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me as a person. I'd like that, I said. Great. How about Saturday night? There's a new Italian place downtown that's supposed to be excellent. It's a date. After Sarah left, I called Derek to thank him for the referral. Referral? Derek sounded confused. I didn't send anyone to you today. Your sister, Sarah. She said you recommended me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Jack, I don't have a sister. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean you don't have a sister? I'm an only child. Always have been. Who did you say this woman was? I described Sarah Mitchell, her appearance, her story about the trust fund, her claim to be Derek's sister. Derek listened quietly, and when I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Jack, I think you need to be careful. That doesn't sound right. You think she was lying about being your sister? I know she was lying about being my sister. The question is, what else was she lying about? After hanging up with Derek, I sat in my office thinking about my conversation with Sarah Mitchell. She'd seemed genuine, interested in me as a person, rather than as a curiosity or a conquest. But if she'd lied about being Derek's sister, what else had she lied about? I was still puzzling over the situation when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Elena's number, which surprised me. We hadn't spoken since signing the divorce papers. Hello, Elena. Jack, we need to talk. It's important. We don't have anything to talk about. The divorce is final, the assets are divided, and we've both moved on. This isn't about the divorce. This is about Sarah Mitchell. My blood ran cold. What about Sarah Mitchell? She's not who you think she is, Jack. She's dangerous, and you need to stay away from her. How do you know Sarah Mitchell? Because she's been stalking me for the past 3 months. She blames me for destroying her relationship with Greg Dalton. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. Sarah Mitchell wasn't Derek's sister or a random customer who'd heard about my reputation. She was connected to Gregory Dalton, and she was playing some kind of game that I didn't understand. Elena, I need you to tell me everything you know about this woman. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street in an hour. And Jack, be careful. Sarah Mitchell isn't just dangerous. She's completely insane. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few college students studying at corner tables and the usual evening crowd of caffeine addicts getting their fix. Elena was already there, sitting at a table near the window, looking nervous and exhausted. She'd changed since our divorce. Her hair was shorter and darker, her clothes were more conservative, and she'd lost weight in a way that suggested stress rather than intentional dieting. The confident, ambitious woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked over her shoulder and jumped at unexpected sounds. Thank you for coming, she said, as I sat down across from her. Tell me about Sarah Mitchell. Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. Her real name is Sarah Dalton. She's Greg's daughter from his first marriage. His daughter? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How old is she? 28. She was in graduate school when Greg and I started our affair, Psychology, I think, or maybe psychiatry. The point is, she knows how to manipulate people. I thought about Sarah's intelligent questions, her seeming interest in my emotional state, her careful probing about my feelings regarding the divorce. It had felt like genuine concern, but now I realized it had been clinical evaluation. What does she want? Revenge. She blames me for destroying her parents' marriage. She's been following me, showing up at my apartment, my work, even my gym. She's convinced that I'm some kind of evil seductress who corrupted her innocent father. And you think she's targeting me now? Elena nodded miserably. She's obsessed with the idea that Greg and I were victims of some grand conspiracy. In her mind, you're the villain who destroyed her father's life, and she wants to make you pay. I processed this information, thinking about Sarah's behavior at the garage. She'd seemed genuinely interested in me as a person, but now I wondered if she'd been studying me, looking for weaknesses she could exploit. How dangerous is she? I don't know. She's never physically threatened me, but there's something in her eyes. She's not stable, Jack. She's intelligent and educated and completely detached from reality. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. I brought copies of everything I have on her, police reports, restraining order applications, emails she sent me. Maybe it will help you understand what you're dealing with. I opened the folder and started reading. The police reports detailed a pattern of stalking behavior. Sarah showing up at Elena's workplace, following her home, leaving disturbing messages on her voicemail. The emails were worse, rambling manifestos about justice and retribution written in the clinical language of someone with advanced psychological training. Jesus, Elena, why didn't you warn me sooner? Because I didn't know she was targeting you until today. She sent me this. Elena handed me a printed email. Read the last paragraph. The email was another rambling screed about Elena's moral failings, but the final paragraph made my blood run cold. Your ex-husband thinks he's a hero, but he's just another man who destroys families for his own satisfaction. He took pleasure in ruining my father's life, and now he's going to learn what it feels like to have everything he cares about destroyed. I'm going to make him fall in love with me, and then I'm going to break his heart the way he broke my father's life. She's planning to seduce me and then destroy me, I said, looking up at Elena. That's what it sounds like. Jack, you need to be careful. Sarah isn't just angry, she's methodical. She's been planning this for months. I thought about my dinner date with Sarah, scheduled for Saturday night. She'd seemed so genuine, so interested in getting to know me as a person. But it had all been an act, a carefully constructed performance designed to make me vulnerable. I need to call the police, I said. With what evidence? She hasn't actually done anything illegal yet. Lying about being Derek's sister isn't a crime, and neither is asking you on a date. Elena was right. Sarah had been manipulative, but she hadn't broken any laws. The police would take a report and tell me to be careful, but they couldn't arrest someone for planning to break my heart. What do you think I should do? Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the evening traffic. I think you should stay away from her. Don't go on that date. Don't take her calls. Don't engage with her at all. Maybe she'll lose interest and move on to someone else. And if she doesn't? Then you'll need to be smarter than she is. I left the coffee shop with Sarah's file under my arm and a new understanding of the situation I'd stumbled into. Sarah Mitchell, Sarah Dalton, wasn't a potential romantic interest or even a harmless eccentric. She was a predator, and I was her chosen prey. But as I drove home, I found myself thinking about the email Elena had shown me. Sarah's plan was to make me fall in love with her and then break my heart. It was a sophisticated revenge scheme, but it had one fatal flaw. It assumed I was stupid enough to fall for it. Sarah Dalton wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I'd gotten very good at games over the past year. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for October, the kind of weather that made you want to sit on porches and pretend summer wasn't ending. I spent the afternoon preparing for my dinner with Sarah, but not in the way she expected. Derek had agreed to help, despite his nervousness about the situation. "Are you sure about this, Jack? This woman sounds dangerous." "She is dangerous, but she's also predictable. She's following a script, and I know what comes next." "What if you're wrong? What if she's more unstable than you think?" "Then I'll deal with that too. But Derek, I need you to promise me something. If this goes wrong, if something happens to me, make sure the police get copies of everything Elena gave me." Derek nodded reluctantly. "I still think you should just avoid her entirely." "That won't work. She's committed to this plan, and she'll find ways to force contact. Better to control the situation than let her dictate the terms." I'd chosen the restaurant carefully. Marcello's, a new Italian place downtown with excellent food and terrible acoustics. The dining room was small and crowded, with tables close enough together that private conversation was impossible. If Sarah was planning to reveal her true intentions, she'd have to wait for a more private moment. I arrived 15 minutes early and positioned myself at a table near the back, with a clear view of the entrance and the kitchen. Sarah arrived precisely on time, looking stunning in a black dress that was elegant without being provocative. She'd clearly put thought into her appearance, crafting an image that was attractive but not threatening. "Jack, you look great," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was the same as before, light, floral, carefully chosen to seem natural rather than seductive. "You look beautiful, Sarah. I'm glad you suggested this place." We made small talk while reviewing the menu, discussing food preferences and restaurant experiences with the easy familiarity of people who'd known each other longer than a few days. Sarah was an excellent conversationalist, asking thoughtful questions and sharing personal anecdotes that seemed designed to create intimacy. "So tell me about your family," I said after we'd ordered. "Derek mentioned you grew up in Charlotte." Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "Actually, I grew up here in town. Derek must have been thinking of someone else." "Really? That's strange. He seemed pretty sure you were from Charlotte." "Brothers," Sarah said with a laugh that sounded slightly forced. "They never pay attention to the details." I nodded, filing away Sarah's lie about being Derek's sister. "Your parents still local?" "Mom's in Florida. Dad's struggling. His marriage ended badly, destroyed by a selfish, manipulative woman who seduced him, then discarded him." "Divorce is brutal," I said evenly. "It wasn't necessary," she snapped, then softened. "Sorry. I don't usually air family drama on first dates." The evening flowed pleasantly after that, her questions probing my divorce, my recovery, my restraint with Elena. She praised my measured response, hinting I could have made Elena suffer more. As we stood to leave, she touched my arm. "Coffee this week?" "Sure. But Sarah, why lie about being Derek's sister? He's an only child." Her face froze. The mask cracked, revealing cold fury. "You think you're clever. You're Gregory Dalton's daughter, here for revenge." Her laugh was ice. "This is justice. I'll make you fall in love, then shatter you." I smiled. "You assume I'd fall for it." Rage flashed across her features, but she steadied. "This isn't over, Jack." "Yes, it is." I left cash on the table and walked out, knowing she'd regroup. Sarah Dalton wasn't finished. She'd just choose a sharper blade next time.